So we finally got some Musketeer reveals. Let's talk about that. I'm just gonna dive right into it. So let's see our grade 3 Cecilia. So it literally has the original effects: Limit Break 4 once per turn, Counterblast 1, put the 5 normal units with Musketeer in their names from the drop to the bottom of your deck in any order. Search your deck for 2 White Lily Musketeer Cecilias and call them to rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. Same thing as before. The second skill, same thing, once per turn, retire 1 of your rearguards, look at the top 5, choose up to 1 card with Musketeer in its name, and call it to rearguard and shuffle your deck. It's still 10k base, it's still the original Cecilia in essence. However, we'll come back to this real quick. So the original Cecilia, the grade 4, did get an errata as what we hoped for. It has a new G-Zone skill that we would expect. If your Vanguard is a grade 3 with White Lily Musketeer Cecilia with the Limit Break 4 ability and you did not get an imaginary gift during this fight, then you can pay the cost to do this skill, which you basically do this discard of summation of grade 3s to stride this from your G-Zone onto face up on your Vanguard circle. Then you have an optional cost that you can do. Turn a card with Musketeer in its name in the G-Zone face up and get 2 imaginary gift force markers, and you get a White Lily Musketeer Cecilia crest. What? So let's slow down a little bit with this one skill. So first off, it doesn't matter what your opponent's grade, so it's just like the History Collection erratas where you can just stride on your opponent regardless if they're a grade 2 or less. Super helpful already in that sense. You get 2 force markers, which is helpful a lot, especially with this clan that needs to make some numbers and probably some crit pressure along the way too later on. And it flips another Musketeer card as cost. It's not specific to the same name, which is actually different. The History Collection erratas had to be the same unit that they flipped, so you always had to play 2 of those cards essentially just to pop it off once. This has some flexibility, but we also get Musketeer. We have other Musketeer strides that we could just flip generically if we want to keep striding the original Cecilia multiple times in a game. Then it has the original skill that it would expect. They act once per turn, Counterblast 1, turn a card face up in your G-Zone generically, and then choose up to 5 of your rearguards, retire them, and look at the top 7 of your deck. Choose any number of cards with Musketeer in the names, and then call the same number that you retired for this effect onto rearguard circle. These units get plus 3k for each face-up Musketeer card in your G-Zone, and then shuffle your deck, of course. So reading this right off the back, if you do this Superior Stride effect during your main phase, and then do her axe skill, you already have GB3 with 2 Musketeer cards potentially face up in the G-Zone. So then those units would get an additional plus 6k instead of just the 3k. Not bad. And of course, we get 2 force markers that we can place on our rearguard circles as well. But wait, there's more. And so this is what the Musketeer crest looks like. So it has 3 continuous skills. And the first one, if your heart is a White Lily Musketeer Cecilia with the Limit Break 4 ability, your original Cecilia on Vanguard circle gets all of your heart's original abilities and the additional skill auto. When your White Lily Musketeer Cecilia is placed on rearguard from deck, you draw a card and one of your units get power plus 10k until the end of the turn. So hold up again. So you get your heart's abilities on top of being on Virginal Cecilia as well. Okay, so we're adding abilities together onto this Vanguard, and you get an additional skill where you get power and you draw. Just rewarding you calling Cecilias. However, isn't that behind Limit Break 4? The original power of your grade 3 units with Limit Break 4 ability becomes 13k, including hearts. That's actually nice because you're a 10k base heart, but also a 10k base Vanguard, so that's super helpful. The Limit Break 4 abilities of your Vanguard are still active even if you have 3 or less cards in your damage load. Thank you. Thank you. No more Limit Break enablers that you have to stuff into your deck. You can actually have room to put other stuff that actually matters. So this means you have 3 cards that work together that essentially give your Virginal Cecilia all these effects that you could use in tandem. It seems like a lot, to be honest, because like you have like 4, 5, 6 skills almost going off at the same time. So essentially you can do Virginal Cecilia with her retire skill after you get the markers, after you get the crest, right? And you're retiring stuff because you could choose up to 5 if you want. And then you can use the other retire skill of the original Cecilia from your heart, which you got that ability to further do that. But then lastly, your Limit Break 4 skill can now be used immediately. You can recycle those cards back to your deck and call the White Lily Musketeer Cecilias, which then will set up your board a lot better without having kind of like a guessing game on your setup of your board essentially. And to reward you, the crests will also give you the ability to draw a card and give an additional 10k whenever a Cecilia is placed from the rear guard from the deck, specifically the White Lily one. That's pretty cool, actually. I think that's fair, and I think that's pretty bonkers at the same time. You are generating 3 attacks this turn, so it's not like super bonkers unless you have like an attack extender, which I could talk about a little bit more later on. But this is already in a good spot, and I will say that you can just tell the theme of the deck really revolves on combining the old Stride with the original Heart and adding a little bit of spice where you're 13k base and an additional skill that really just helps the deck a little bit match up a bit with the current metagame too. I'll talk more about that when we get to that as well. So then they decided to reveal the G-Zone list at least, and we are getting the Harmonics Messiah like they said they would. We're getting 4 of the original Cecilia, which makes a lot of sense. And I noticed we have the Captain Cecilia over here, which is a generic Musketeer that we can flip. So we can keep going into original Cecilia if you want to, turn by turn if needed. So it's not like a 2 thing where you just have 4 copies and you flip a copy. You can actually go into 3 times actually, unless you play more of the other one, but you can go up to 4 times at that point. Ladislava, that's a good, just to have a one-off. Katrina, thank you. That is a good reprint too. They gave us 1 Katrina at least. And I think that's justifiable for this deck set too, because it really does want to go into the original Cecilia, but now you have an option to go into Katrina for later on if you need to as well, which is great. And what's really cool with Virginal Cecilia, you have 2 face-up cards, and then if you go into Katrina, if you didn't G-Guard or anything, you can generate 3 tokens immediately. Actually 4 tokens, because she'll flip as soon as you're placed, so you can generate a full field essentially without a booster for the Vanguard. But if you G-Guard it, then you generate 5 tokens for free at that point, which is really nice too. You have some of the other cards that are nice to have, but not as like something that point out as very strong. They have the Antero J-Guard, they have the one that counter charges, which is super handy. This is good to recycle your Musketeers as well, especially your white Cecilias as well. That's actually going to come up. I probably would get a second copy if needed. And then a Rain Breath, just in case, if you want to add some plays, and a generic Cray one. Okay, sure. So overall, the G-Zone with the choices with the heart reveals and everything, like the crest and stuff, like it all makes sense to me. I think this is in a good track for being a solid deck set, especially if you want to invest into a new clan, or maybe you're coming into Premium for the first time. I feel like this is something that's cohesive enough for you to pick up and actually play and potentially upgrade later on with extra cards that you may want to use. We still don't know what's in the main deck yet, so I'm hoping that we see a lot of the reprints that we just need for Musketeers. I know months ago, and thanks to Axis Vanguard for also like reminding me, the triggers were already revealed a while back, so we'll be getting the generic stuff that you would expect, the triggers with effects essentially, and also Sentinels. So that leaves the rest of the normal units to be more Musketeer in this deck set, and of course the other one respectively, Joe Knights and Revengers or Raging cards. So I think these deck sets are panning out well, and so some cards that come to mind that I hope that comes in the deck set, if not you may have to pick them up, or like let's start with the grade 3s. It would be good to have a reverse Cecilia and maybe a Martina just to have some pressure. Moving forward, especially on Katrina turns, you can call reverse Cecilia and have a double Vanguard attack turn, essentially, pretty easily. That's something that you can splash into that. And also, with Martina, it's just crit pressure, because if you're making all these boards that are beefy with the original Cecilia plays, then you can actually just have some crit pressure in your 3 attacks, essentially. The grade 2 Musketeers that come to mind are Saul and Tora as well. These are excellent cards to, again, retire stuff on your board, but check the top 3 and then call more and stuff. This is helpful for during the main phase, but also the battle phase if needed too. And plus you can activate triggers with Saul, so that can also make those 3 attack turns also more scarier with additional crits if you were able to activate a crit trigger from Saul's skill. The grade 1s, I think we have, depending on how much counterblast the deck needs, it would be nice just to have counter charges to like the grade 1s on the screen. And so luckily Musketeers has multiple ways of counter charging too. You may want to pick up the crit triggers that are Musketeer too, that counter charges too, which is impactful, because it seems that we're not getting those unless they add those on top of that, which who knows. More than likely we'll just get the generic triggers as they already shown, and then they just call it a day, essentially. Some generic battle phase stuff like the Gladiolus and also like the token generated, the V promo, essentially. That could be something in the mix. I've seen a potential play with the Gladiolus where like you can put all the force markers on the Gladiolus column, and then since you have your White Lily Musketeers attacking, the Gladiolus can make a copy of it and call the other one to have a 4th attack on that Virginal Cecilia turn. And because you have the crest enable, you'll also get an additional draw and the 10k to make that rearguard actually hit a bit big, essentially. So it makes that 4th attack pretty much worth it in that point too. But that's something to play test, and also if they even include those cards in the deck set as well. And so let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are. Are you excited for the premium deck sets? What are some cards that you think that would help for this deck set as well? Again, we don't know the main deck list, so we're only guessing at this point what would be getting reprinted, but I think what we've seen today is definitely a win for this deck set. I know people were thinking about, like, is the value there? And essentially, because you're already getting Harmonix Messiah, now a Katrina guaranteed, those cards alone make up for the value of the deck set if you really think about it that way. But also you get a full completed deck essentially for you to play for fun, or maybe take it to your next locals event or regional event. I'm just excited with this, and I will be getting this and be making more videos as this is revealed more, and also later on a deck profile, and also maybe some tips and like how to upgrade stuff, combos potentially, because this deck does seem like it has more lines of play that players maybe not used to. So I'll be making videos like that in the near future as well. On to the next one, amigos. Bye.